Hi everybody. I've recently been talking to caregivers with elderly parents and older adults who have been a little too agreeable. And the result of being a little too agreeable is abuse, neglect, and deception. So here's an example. A caregiver recently expressed concerns about one parent who's been pretty agreeable all of their life, but who now is being abused or neglected by the other parent. If you're a caregiver, you might think, well, how on earth does this happen? And if it happens, what do I do? Stay with me while I share the positive and negative aspects of being agreeable, including the risks for women who are usually more agreeable than men. If this is your first time here, I'm Pamela D Wilson. I'm a caregiving expert, advocate, and speaker. I have health, financial, and legal background, including navigating family and relationship experience that I use to help caregivers in one-on-one consultations and to serve as an expert witness for law firms. You can learn about my professional background by visiting my website, PamelaDWilson.com, and clicking on the services button, or you can go to the links below this video and click on those links. If you have a question for a video, a comment, or just want to say thank you, please share it below. Every comment, every thank you makes a huge, huge difference in helping other people find their way to my channel. Let's talk about what is agreeableness. It is a personality trait that has many positive and many negative aspects. Positive traits include being a team player, being a cheerleader, taking an interest in solving other people's problems, and wanting to help other people. These are common traits of caregivers. The negative aspect of being agreeable is that agreeable people are more easily taken advantage of. They can be targets for abuse or exploitation in relationships because they always say yes, they always agree, even though inside they're saying, oh, I don't want to do this, I disagree. But those words never come out. Agreeable people can also be easily misled or influenced or deceived. What motivates agreeable people? Well, they want to be liked. They want to have positive relationships. And above all, they want to avoid conflict. There's a lot of research out there. It confirms that women are more agreeable than men. And here is an outcome of being too agreeable. You're a woman and you're at work. The result of being too agreeable is that women get paid less than men because they underestimate their value and they don't advocate for themselves at times of job reviews. Many times they don't ask for salary increases. They don't know how to justify the benefit of the work that they do. Instead, what do? They're a cheerleader for other people. They advocate and they take care of other people. Highly agreeable and conscientious women, hardworking women, often exploited in the workplace. They do more, they go above and beyond, and they are rarely equally compensated. Put this into a caregiving context. Highly agreeable women, conscientious women who have all these things they want to do and tasks and everything, and they complete it. They do that and they're never appreciated. And truly, they're never compensated. Nor do they actually think about, gee, should I be compensated for this? Should I do a caregiving agreement with my parents or my grandparents or this other person? No, women just do it. So let's talk more about how agreeableness relates to everyday caregiving. For the caregiver, agreeable caregivers can be taken advantage of by elderly parents and family members. Why? These family members expect them to do everything, and many caregivers do everything. Caregivers take on all the work because they want to be liked and appreciated and avoid conflict. And most importantly, they don't want to say no. Agreeable caregivers, they rarely speak up. They rarely tell other people what's on my mind or what they want. So what do? They suffer in silence. Many caregivers, and they have told me this, they hope that somebody will recognize them for their hard work. They say, you know what, I'm not going to ask my siblings for help. They should see how hard this is. They should know how hard I'm working. If they want to help, they can. I'm not going to ask. This type of caregiver, way too agreeable. Agreeable people, if you ask them what they want, they can't tell you because they are so busy making the lives of other people happy. Agreeable people, ask them, what do you want out of life? Or agreeable people often ask other people, well, what do you think I should do? Because they don't know what they want. And so they can't figure it out. And so they rely on other people to say, well, what do you think? Now, asking other people's opinions is a good thing. But it's usually a good thing after you've kind of done a little bit of research, formed your opinion, and you're kind of looking for somebody to give you the pros and cons so that you can say, well, yeah, that makes sense, or no, that doesn't make sense, right? So rather than being an agreeable person who says, hey, what do you think? And then you just do it, think about it. And because of this agreeableness, agreeable people are more easily manipulated. And this brings in the context of spouse caregivers. And so agreeableness with spouse caregivers can be similarly negative as regular caregiving, right? One spouse in a relationship can become overly controlling. They do everything. Because the agreeable spouse never speaks up and says, hey, I don't like that. They never complain. They never say, well, gee, could we do it this way? Everything goes great until one day. And adult children notice that, wow, agreeable mom or dad is being neglected by an over-controlling mom or dad. Well, how does it happen? Well, the neglected and agreeable mom or dad may say something to an adult child that they would never, ever, ever mention to the controlling spouse, because that could cause conflict and an argument. Something like, oh my gosh, the controlling spouse spends all of our money. I never get to buy what I want. The controlling spouse doesn't want me to leave the house. I can't go out with my friends anymore. It's hard to see you kids. I'd love to have the grandkids over, but controlling spouse doesn't want kids in the house. Controlling spouses eventually, in some situations, go to the extent to screen phone calls and visitors, including adult children. Controlling spouses can say, oh, you don't need to go to the doctor. There's nothing wrong with you. Or a controlling spouse can refuse to drive the agreeable spouse to a doctor appointment. Controlling spouses eventually can isolate the agreeable spouse from other people. They may even lie to the agreeable spouse to make the spouse suspicious about the intentions of other people, including their kids. Like, oh, your kids will put you in a nursing home. Your kids will do this. Your kids will do that. And they never tell the agreeable spouse that, wow, the kids are calling every day to check on you, because they want the agreeable spouse to think that the kids are bad. And this especially happens in step marriage situations. The goal of the controlling spouse is to make the agreeable spouse more agreeable and to do whatever the controlling spouse wants. Now, all of this control and deception may not be visible to adult children or friends who don't call or don't visit, right? Can you imagine what this is like for the agreeable person who doesn't know that you're calling and doesn't know that your visits are being denied? What do they think? They go to worst case scenario thinking, my kids don't care about me. They never call, they never visit. My friends don't care about me. They never call, they never visit. Yet this agreeable spouse has no idea that the controlling spouse is preventing all of these people from contacting and visiting the person. Imagine what a prison that is like for the agreeable spouse, because they've had this lifelong trait of being agreeable that is now being exploited and manipulated. And in these situations, what I've seen is adult children, they're afraid to rock the boat. They will hesitate to speak to the controlling spouse because they're telling the agreeable spouse they should do that. The children, who also may be agreeable, are afraid of conflict or disagreement or blow-ups. Well, what if we say something and the controlling spouse gets mad at agreeable spouse? That's a problem. So instead, what happens? The adult children become frustrated, and they watch agreeable mom or dad continue to be abused. Agreeable children who are afraid to have difficult conversations because they don't want to confront a controlling dad or mom or a step-parent are participating in the abuse. And the other children may not want to be involved either. They may say, well, agreeable mom or dad can make their own decisions, when honestly, that agreeable mom or dad hasn't made a decision in years because controlling mom and dad has done everything. They've made all of the decisions. This situation is even worse. If agreeable mom and dad has dementia or Alzheimer's, and they really don't have the mental capacity to say no or to advocate for themselves, they just kind of go along with controlling mom or dad. And so if it's that situation and adult children are watching this happen, then you are contributing to abuse and neglect and isolation and manipulation by the controlling spouse. It's true, agreeable people, agreeable caregivers, agreeable spouses would rather do nothing than have a difficult conversation that's going to disturb what might appear to be a peaceful but truly neglectful, manipulative, isolating situation. It takes conflict to resolve these problems in the short term. And avoiding conflict is not a good long-term strategy, because the things that you don't want to talk about, they're not going to go away. They're probably only going to get worse. And as a result of that, the agreeable parent may be permanently harmed. So if you are an agreeable caregiver, an agreeable adult, an agreeable spouse, and you're watching someone suffer, or you are the person who's suffering, it's really a time to make a plan, to recognize that conflict and disagreement may be the only way forward. Because it's very unlikely that the controlling person, whether it's a sibling caregiver, maybe it's you, an elderly parent, a spouse, highly unlikely that they're going to want to talk because they don't want to give up control. It's also highly unlikely that agreeable mom or dad is ever going to say anything, even if you have a family meeting, because they are not going to want to speak up against the person who is controlling. Agreeable people avoid conflict. They want everyone to get along, and sometimes that happens at the expense of the agreeable person. So what can you do if the concerns are significant and you have proof, you have examples? Well, number one is to hold a family meeting, and maybe hold multiple meetings to discuss concerns and to identify concerns and solutions and see how everybody reacts. Is controlling mom or dad denying the situation? Are other siblings denying the situation? Sometimes agreeable people make excuses for other people. Well, controlling mom or dad are under stress. They've had a hard life. Blah, 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 blah. And it happens. Number two, if that doesn't work, family meetings. Make a report to Adult Protective Services and ask the police to do a welfare check. If you have significant concerns and that family meeting went nowhere, it's good to have this complaint on the record because you may need it in the future. Now, realize though that this complaint may only go so far. APS and the police may tell you that you've got to become more involved in the caregiving situation to resolve the issue. So if this is the case, you really have to think about, what do you want the situation to look like? How might it be improved? And what steps can you take to work toward the goal? So sometimes it can be going back to having a family meeting to talk about transparency and sharing information and the fact that you do want to visit and you want your phone calls answered and you want your parent to receive medical care. Sometimes it can take a meeting with an elder care consultant like me to figure it out, but definitely discussing this within your family can be a path forward. Now, other times, if all of this has been attempted and it's not been successful, then sometimes legal action may be necessary. Similar to the positives and the negatives of agreeableness in all of this caregiving, there's no one answer for every situation. The answer, the solution, depends on the strengths and weaknesses of the family relationships over time and what each individual is willing to contribute. Also, if individuals are willing to say, maybe I am too controlling. Maybe I did this and it wasn't exactly the right thing to do. You have to be working with people who are flexible enough to realize that maybe the situation needs to change. So if you'd like help in this area, feel free to schedule a one-to-one consultation with me. Go to my website, PamelaDWilson.com, click on the Services tab, and then scroll down to Elder Care Consultant, where you can complete a form. There's also links to my one-to-one consultations below this video, links to my website, my podcast, my blog, lots of other helpful information for caregivers and aging adults. I thank you so much for being here. I will see you all again soon in another video.